Randomness. It's the element that can make or break nearly any game. For paper trading card games, we are limited to essentially 3 different options: rolling a dice, flipping a coin, or drawing a card for an effect. None of these archetypes have been particularly popular due to their inconsistent nature. What randomness can do, though, is keep us on the edge of our seats, delivering a jaw-dropping moment. Hearthstone, one of the most prolific digital card games, introduced Yogg-Saron, letting the player cast potentially unlimited spells at a truly random rate. Digital platforms give developers countless options to deliver randomness outside of what is possible in the traditional paper format. But randomness also has the power to frustrate and overwhelm players if done poorly. Whether it's the thrill of drawing the perfect card or the agony of watching your strategy crumble thanks to the unpredictable effects, randomness is indeed a double-edged sword. A recent blurry still from one of the new Pokemon TCG Pocket ads left us with a little bit of insight on what the upcoming randomness in the new digital game might look like. So, the upcoming release of Pokemon TCG Pocket has me wonder, will randomization ruin it? Randomness in digital card games is a core mechanic that can make gameplay exciting and unpredictable, but it comes with its own set of challenges and design consideration. Here's an overview of how randomness has functioned in some of these digital card games so far. First, I would like to take some time to discuss the different types of randomness that we might see. Card draw randomness. This is one of the most fundamental forms of randomness in card games. Players draw a card from their shuffled deck, leading to unpredictable hands and forcing players to adapt to strategies on the fly. This is super common in paper decks. Most decks aim to have some form of draw engine to aid in the consistency of the deck and functions as a core mechanic. Deck construction randomness is next. Some formats or game modes might involve a random deck generated, like in Hearthstone Arena or Magic the Gathering Draft mode. These modes are a little more niche and often referred to as drafting, just broadly. Drafting is a quick and fun way to play the paper TCG in my experience. We see Pokemon do it at pre-release events, and they usually have a different set of rules that require some creativity and a bit of luck with your packs. The last randomness is effect-based randomness. Certain cards or abilities have effects that trigger randomly. For example, a card might deal damage to a random enemy or summon a random creature. This is particularly unique to digital card games, or at least has a lot more potential in a digital format. Pokemon TCG has done this once before already. In 2000, Pokemon Trading Card Game was released for the Game Boy Color, but there was a sequel for this game released in Japan just a short year later. The sequel introduced a specific Zapdos unique to the game, with the ability Peal of Thunder. When you put Zapdos into play during your turn, do 30 damage to a Pokemon other than Zapdos, chosen at random. One still from a recent Pokemon TCG Pocket trailer revealed a new trainer card, Pokeball. Some Reddit users were able to decipher the extremely blurry text. Put one random basic Pokemon from your deck into your hand. This card seems like it will potentially be great at thinning out your deck and getting a new basic Pokemon out on the field. Next, let's dive into a little bit about the pros of randomness. One of the biggest pros for randomness, in my opinion, is replayability. Random elements ensure that each game feels different and enhances the replay value. For paper trading card games, this looks like deck order, cards in your hands, or the 6 random prize cards you pull out of your deck at the beginning of the game. Randomness lets you build excitement and tension. The uncertainty brought by randomness can create dramatic, memorable moments. Will you draw the right card you need to win? Will you hit the heads on your coin flip? Or will you be able to digitally generate the condition you've been looking for all along that will seal the game? Lastly, it really tests skill. While it might seem a bit counterintuitive, randomness can test a player's adaptability in real time. In my opinion, this is different but equally important skill as strategic planning the deck. This concept is seen frequently in the drafting format or in some digital auto battlers like Hearthstone Battlegrounds or Riot's Teamfight Tactics. There's frequent discourse about skill testing in random environments with these games. Opponents of it frequently cite luck playing much more of a role over skill in these games, but I tend to view it more as your skill pushes the luck further and further in your favor. So sure, there will be some inevitable unlucky moments, but the best players will be able to mitigate their position and get the best scenario possible out of it. Other times, you might simply brick. Let's move on to some of the cons of randomness now that we've discussed the pros. Number 1 is perceived fairness. Too much randomness can make the game feel unfair, where the outcome hinges more on luck rather than skill. This will make a game unfun and result in a poor player experience overall. Usually there is an issue with balance from the development team, where some outcomes are extremely good and other outcomes are extremely bad. If the game is not balanced, randomness can often lead to skill diminishment. If not balanced properly, randomness can reduce the impact of player decisions, leading to frustration. Leading to our next point, player frustration. Bad luck can lead to extremely frustrating experience, particularly if the player feels they lost due to factors beyond their control. So how do you build the best random experience? With balancing, of course. Large game studios have entire teams dedicated to balancing their live service games. These teams generally receive an extremely large amount of public scrutiny. So let's take a brief look at how balancing might occur in some of these games. Number 1, controlled randomness. Minigames implement mechanisms to control or limit the impact of randomness on the game. For example, cards with random effects might have restrictions. The restrictions might prevent them from being completely unpredictable. Certain cards might not be able to be accessed, as is the case with Pokeball. It only allows for basic cards instead of the evolution that you might need to win the game in that moment. Another one being mitigation tools. You can provide players with tools to reduce randomness, like card draw engines, tutoring cards, or potential counterplay options can help balance the luck versus skill opportunities. Pokemon generally has very little counterplay options, but I look forward to seeing if that's potentially an option with the fully digital client. Lastly is variance in a lot of the formats. Offering different game modes and formats with varying levels of randomness allows the player to choose how much variance they want in their game. Draft formats will have very high levels of randomness by design, but it can be extremely rewarding to get a big win streak with a fully random deck you drafted yourself. I've touched on a couple examples already, but I want to look a bit more into detail and take a deep dive on how digital TCGs have completely changed their games with randomness. Some of these changes for the better, and others, well, not so much. I was a longtime Hearthstone player. Hearthstone, a game well known for a mix of skill and luck, and many of their cards have random effects. Blizzard has made efforts to balance randomness by creating mechanics that give players some control of the outcomes. One of the most iconic cards discussed earlier is Yogg. Folks absolutely love this card. It's played at the very end of the match and lets you experience the true bliss of randomness in a digital client. Another great mechanic, in my opinion, is Discovery. Cards with this text let you pick one of 3 random options. Darkfire Amulet is an excellent example of this. It can totally swing the game in your favor or make you concede on the spot. Marvel Snap is another game that incorporates randomness into their client, particularly with the locations, which have effects that can drastically change how a match plays out. Marvel Snap has also made one of the most divisive cards with a random mechanic as well, Loki. On reveal, replace your deck with your opponent's starting deck. Give those cards -1 cost. This has resulted in an extremely frustrating experience for players. One of the great things about digital live service games is the ability to change the cards on the fly, but it can be more complicated than that. People can feel they're unfairly treated when they pay real money and their card changes. If the card's too random and far too powerful, it results in poor match experiences. Randomness is a double-edged sword in the digital card games. Again, it can provide excitement and replayability, but also provides a lot of challenges for balancing and player satisfaction. The key is how developers manage and mitigate randomness to ensure it enhances experience rather than detracts. So, with that all being said, do you think randomness might ruin TCG Pocket? Let me know down below.